Anybody who's seen my show knows that I like to sit on my ass and watch movies. But every once in a while, every now and then, I get in the mood for a little road trip.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Terra Obscura. Today we're here at the HorrorHound convention in wonderful Indianapolis.
That's right, last week I took my show on the road for a weekend of fun among the fans, vendors, cosplayers, and chaos of HorrorHound. Not only did I collect a shit ton of swag, but I also got the chance to meet a ton of interesting people. Some of them whose faces you've never seen on screen, and others who you're all too familiar with, including screen legend Bill Moseley, probably best remembered as big screen lunatic Chop Top.
I'm here with Bill Moseley at HorrorHound. He has had an awesome career, over 30 years and over 100 films. You've had everything from bit roles to major roles in films, worked with some of the best. I was just wondering, how exactly have you managed to have such an incredible career? I mean, is there any sort of secret to having such a diverse plethora of roles over the years?
I think if there is, other than talent, which I think probably kicks in there at some point, it's always good to show up early, know your lines, and don't be a dick.
Absolutely. With all those roles, is there anything that stands out, any particular favorite you have of everything you've ever done?
Well, I would have to say in terms of, as an acting challenge and something that was satisfying as an actor, I would have to say it was Otis Driftwood and The Devil's Rejects. But I try to just show up for every acting role I have and just do the best I can. As a tip to young actors, what I try to do is to read the script 4 or 5 times so that I really know the story, the relationships of the characters, whatever backstory there is, just so that I can end up and do a decent job conveying a reality.
That's very cool. Some of your most recent work has included stuff like Repo, the Genetic Opera, and The Devil's Carnival, both of which, have gotten fairly good-sized cult followings to them. How did you prepare for a more musical role than something you're, usually used to?
Well, I had a band with a great guitar player named Buckethead for a long time, and the band was called Cornbugs, and in anticipation of a world tour, which never materialized, I started taking singing lessons, and that was probably about 20 years ago. And Cornbugs has kind of come and gone, but I keep my singing lesson every week in Los Angeles. And so when I was auditioning for Repo, they gave me a song, and I took it to my singing teacher. We worked on it so that not only could I sing it just voice-wise, but also, knew the dramatics of the song. And, went to a studio, auditioned for it, sang the song, and got the job. And then, I keep taking those singing lessons, and then Repo kind of morphed into Devil's Carnival. And about 2 weeks ago, we just wrapped Devil's Carnival Part 2.
Yes, I heard that you were doing that. You were the magician, if I'm not mistaken.
Still the magician, yep.
Get any big solos or anything in this one?
No, I don't even sing in this one, which is kind of sad. And maybe that's a commentary on how I did in the first one. I don't know.
Nah,
they assure me that there's a singing, a nice a solo actually in Devil's Carnival 3. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm holding it to them.
Well, all of us are
to it.
Well, all of us are looking forward to it too. Say, real quick, last thing. You've got a bunch of projects on your plate coming up. I was wondering if you had to plug just one, what would it be and why?
The next movie I think I'm doing is at the end of this month, this being September 2014. I'm doing a giant spider movie with my old buddy Mike Mendez. I think the movie is called Scorched, and I don't understand what Scorched has to do with giant spiders, but maybe more will be revealed. So I guess that's what I would be plugging. That and a great movie I did in Australia a couple of months ago with Kane Hodder and Tara Reid called Charlie's Farm. and that should be premiering, I think, in November in Australia, and then there's going to be a screening. I'm sure there's going to be a premiere in Los Angeles, maybe. So that would be the other one I would plug. Charlie's Farm and Mike Mendez's Scorched.
While the actors in front of the camera might be fascinating, it takes plenty of work behind the lens to bring some of horror's best special effects to life. And that's where my next interviewee came in, a man who's responsible for putting the evil in the Evil Dead.
Hi there, we are here with Tom Sullivan, one of the makeup gurus behind the Evil Dead series and also the amazing The Fly 2. Yes, here we have one of the actual props. That is awesome.
Yeah, I made this one for with my bookbinder, The Dead Pat Reese, for Evil Dead the Musical, the Broadway production.
I've heard about it. Any chances of it coming around St. Louis anytime soon?
Very likely. Evil Dead the Musical is now in community theater land, so it's playing everywhere. Check out evildeadthemusical.com and it'll have a list of where it's played and where it's playing.
I see you've got a collection of your work up here. Are you doing anything else in Hollywood? Any plans?
No, not Hollywood. We're making movies in Michigan. I heard a great story, or a great little mantra: make movies where you live, make Hollywood come to you, which I think is good advice. LA's a horrible place to make movies. It costs way too much. But lately, I just last week, I finished an assignment for a company down in called Via Vision down in Australia, New Zealand, and they distribute Blu-rays, and they have all 4 Evil Dead films Blu-ray collection, and they hired me to make a Book of the Dead, 16 new pages of artwork. Every 4 pages represent a different one of the movies, and a 9.5-inch Kandarian dagger that I sculpted, and it's got an Evil Dead 2 cover on it, and it should be very exciting. They're only doing 3,000 of these, and they're like $250 a piece, so order quickly. You can only see them if you have a Region 9 player or an all-region Blu-ray player, but it's going to be epic. It's some of my best work. I'm very happy with it.
That sounds awesome, and it is definitely worth the price. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a good day.
While creating top-notch special effects on a shoestring budget is nothing to sneeze at, some of our other guests prefer to work with the infinite budget of the blank page. That's why it was so interesting to see the fine folks at horror publisher Sam Hain Press there, and we even managed to scare up an interview with one of their authors.
Hi, I'm here with Adam Cesaire, who is the author of The Summer Job and Video Night, which has just sold out at this table. Adam, thank you very much for being here, and tell me a little bit about your work.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I do kind of film-centric horror because I was a teacher for a few years. I was a high school English teacher, and I really love books. I really love horror, and I want to kind of get people into horror literature because I'm such a horror film fan. So I figured my work can kind of bridge the gap. My first book, Video Night, is about first novel. Video Night is about a two young friends growing up on Long Island in the late 1980s. They know that one of them is moving away, so they know they won't be friends for very much longer. So they decide to have a one last video night. They get some beer, they get some girls to come over. But wouldn't you know it, the body-snatching invasion of 1988 it just happens right then. So they have to fight off aliens and creatures and various things. I've been pitching it as John Hughes meets Sam Raimi. And people seem to respond to that. So we sold out here, and then I have my second novel, Summer Job, which is more of a folk horror. I love The Wicker Man, Blood on Satan's Claw, films like that. So I really wanted to kind of write an homage to those films and that genre, Dennis Wheatley, books like that.
Say, how did you come to the attention of Sam Hain Press? Did you just submit your material, or?
I had pitched my first book, Video Night, to Don Dioria, who, for people that don't know him, was the head editor of Leisure, which was one of the bigger mass markets, the last big mass market horror imprint. And then when Leisure went away, Sam Hain, who was primarily a romance publisher, decided to start a horror line. And because that book was written with Don in mind, because he was kind of the editor that I really wanted to work with, I followed him over and I pitched it to him at a convention, kind of like this. And the rest is history. I got my third book coming out with them in December. It's called Exponential.
Tell us a little bit about it.
creature horror, and I did little creatures in video night, and I'd asked Don, I want to kind of write in all the subgenres, so I'd asked him, like, what did he not have on the schedule, and he said creature horror is kind of light, and I'm like, well, I want to do a big creature book. I want to do something like Tremors or Razorback or The Blob. So I kind of built all those around. The monster is a bone golem construct that's kind of halfway The Blob, halfway because it keeps growing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he's got bones inside him. It's an awesome creature book. I'm really excited for it to come out. A huge cast of shifting characters. Very few of the characters get perspective chapters over again. It's just this. I really wanted to challenge myself to write something structurally different. So it's a really weird book, not just in structure but in tone.
On a more personal note, any chance of more copies of Video Night coming in tomorrow?
No. I think we only had those. Summer Job is the work so far that's in print that I'm most proud of. So I've been trying to get people to pick that one up. Video Night just sold out first, and I'm really happy. I mean,
well, that is very awesome. And if you want a copy, go ahead and go online, Sam Hain Press.
And while writing and filmmaking are both fine forms of artistic expression, still others prefer to work in a more physical medium. The vendors' racks of HorrorHound were stuffed with vendor-created artwork of all our horror faves and other, more disturbing gifts.
So anyway, we are here with the creator of Scare Bears, who are these killer teddy bears, for want of a better word. Yes, take a quick look here. If that is not the most awesome thing you have ever seen, then you clearly have led a better life than I have. What was your inspiration for creating these things?
Well, actually, the idea I came up with about 4 years ago. My daughter asked me, she was getting sick of getting hit by her little brother's teddy bear, so she asked me to do something with it, and I did. And this is the result. So.
Now, are they all animatronic like this, or each one seems to be very individual, you know?
No two are exactly alike. The animatronic ones are the only kind that are similar to each other. No, they're not all animatronics. I only make some of them this way. Most of the other ones are just gory, and I put a spin on every one of them individually. So.
And clearly I'm not the only fan, because as we can see up there, we have photos of several happy celebrities with their own Scare Bears. Tell me, what are some of do you have any stories to share about that? Or?
Yeah, sure. Actually, one of the most interesting stories I have is Butch Patrick, Eddie Munster, stopped by my table and bought one when he was signing autographs at another convention. When he did, Danny Trejo's table was right next to him, and I just so happened to walk by and wave to Butch. When I did, I looked behind me, I heard someone screaming at me. It was Danny Trejo, and he's like, hey. And, I'm like, oh my God, I'm being chased by Machete. And he came back to my table, and if you go on YouTube and put Danny Trejo Loves Scare Bears, you'll see him at my table waving people over. And he's a big fan. He's got a couple of these now, yeah.
That is amazing. Anyway, though, you, as the man said, can find them online, or if you happen to be at a convention, be sure to look them up.
While the vendors' stalls were fascinating, one of the other great joys at HorrorHound was getting the chance to see some familiar faces, even if they were slightly flatter when last we saw them.
Hi, I'm here with Peter Barton, who a lot of people may remember from Hell Night and Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Peter, how are you doing? You enjoying the convention so far?
I am. I've had a really good time. Seems like it was pretty busy. Enjoyed meeting everybody and talking about old times, and just very blessed to be here.
Fantastic. Say, what is it like reuniting with the other cast members of the final chapter after all these years? Have you guys been in touch at all, or?
Well, since we now have Facebook, yeah, I met, it was funny because I got in contact about 4 years ago when I did my first one of these. I've done like 4. I do like one a year now. And I did the one in Maryland where they had a big Friday the 13th reunion. They had like 20 people. So I got to see Amy Steele, who I worked with on a series I did. Judy was there, Kimberly Beck, Ted, Lawrence Monison. So so basically we're all Facebook friends now. So it's not quite like the first time was awesome, and then we all exchanged emails and Facebook things, and so it's not as exciting as it was 4 years ago, but it's still fun to come be around everybody.
But anyway, being here, I'm sure you've met a ton of different fans, people who know you from your films. What's the biggest question that you've been asked so far?
Let's see, what's the biggest? That's a tough one. Usually they want to know what it was like to do a horror picture. You know, I guess everybody, like, you know, when you watch one, you're always kind of like, I think that's what pops into your mind the most. So, yeah, the question I get most often is, you know, so what was that like? What was it like to be part of that? You know, what was, you know, whether it was hanging out with, you know, the cast members, or what was it like to do the shower scene where I get killed? But it's always about what's it like to do a horror film.
Do you have any advice for young actors, people looking to start up in Hollywood, or give it a go?
If you love to act, I say pursue it. Like, people always talk it down, whether it's your parents or people say it's like a pipe dream. But you know, you can be like myself, who was the, you know, the guy, the kind of like better looking guy who, like, you know, gets, you know, to do it. Or you can be Danny DeVito. It doesn't really matter. It's like, if you love to act, you should pursue it. And the best way to do it is like pursue it in your hometown, get into plays, and don't let anybody talk you out of it. I think you learn so much by being part of the world, being an artist. So just by taking on parts and trying to do plays, you learn a lot about yourself. And I think it's good for your own, you know, education to take on acting.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from the man himself, Peter Barton. Never give up, follow your dreams.
And some of the faces in the crowd might belong to people you wouldn't recognize out of uniform, but who have nevertheless had a huge impact on your horror viewing experience. One of my greatest pleasures at HorrorHound was getting the opportunity to meet Ted White, a veteran stuntman who brought Jason Voorhees to life in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. In that episode, I joked about how scary he was, but in truth, I've never met a nicer guy. He stuck up for a lot of the actors on set, despite Joseph Zito's occasionally unsafe directorial demands, even going so far as to have his name removed from the credits in protest. He brings a lifetime of experience to the table, and it was great to get a chance to chat with him.
And since we've had the great fortune to speak to some of the other cast members of Friday the 13th, the final chapter, we are here with veteran stuntman Ted White, the man behind the mask himself, who once played Jason Voorhees. Hi, Ted.
How are you today?
I am doing very well. Now, you've said in the past that you've done a lot of research when you first started coming up with the movements and mannerisms for Jason. You watched the previous films and sort of came up with what you wanted to do in your head. It seems to me that there's a lot more acting involved with being a stuntman than people seem to think, you know?
Well, there's not so much more acting, but there's more body movement, and that's what I decided to do. The other Jasons that I saw had a little bit of that Boris Karloff walk. I didn't like that, and I thought if I'm going to chase somebody, I'd rather be walking or running, but not that slow, clumsy walk.
Absolutely, and that has gone on to influence pretty much every incarnation of the character after your own portrayal, especially that of Kane Hodder, who, in my mind, is the second best Jason after yours truly.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But anyway, you have had a ton of experience as a stuntman, and when last I checked, I'm showing that your career lasted from 1956, and your last one was actually in 2000 with Gone in 60 Seconds. But in all that time, I'm wondering, what would you say?
No, that's not my last one. My last one was Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift.
Really?
Yes.
That's awesome. But in all that time, what would you say is the most important thing that you've learned about stunt work?
Well, the most important thing you can learn about stunt work is the safety aspects of it. Every stunt that you do has to be worked out prior to doing it. Safety is the greatest thing of all. For the crew, the cast, yourself, of course. I did another picture in Africa with John Wayne called Hatari with wild animals. There again, safety reared its ugly head, and it worked out fine as far as the show was being shot, but we did have 2 fatalities on the movie. One of them did concern the movie, a lady that had a baby lion that she had raised. I brought her in to double Elsa Martinelli because Elsa had a scene with a lion, and the lion actually killed its own trainer. So these are unforgivable things, and these are things that you don't have there's no way you can say, no, you can't do this, because she'd raised it from a baby. And it was the most unusual thing in the world for that to happen, but it happened. So things like that do happen, Unfortunately, I've been on films where other people were killed by accidents that were not worked out prior to the show, the stunt work. So safety is the biggest concern of all.
Absolutely, and that's a terrible shame that occurred.
Yes, it is.
But that in mind, what would you say that in your career your favorite stunt that you've ever done is? Is there a particular type of stunt or?
I've done so many different things in the last 60 years. I'm 88 now, so 60 years of motion picture business. I doubled Clark Gable, John Wayne, Victor Mature, Rock Hudson, but Wayne and Gable mostly for all those years. I can't pick one out that's any more dangerous or more exciting than the others. They all kind of melt together over a period of time.
Wow. That is fantastic, and I would like to thank you on behalf of my fans for doing this interview. We all love you on the show, and it's great that you appeared. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Have a good day.
And with my bags full of awesome merch and my camera full of interviews, it was time for me to make my way back for a slightly more familiar brand of fun. And while I had a great trip, it's nice to be back, especially because now I can talk about the other cool thing at HorrorHound, the film screenings. While I was there, I had the chance to take in 3 screenings: Hanover House, Son of Ghostman, and the horrendously titled Witching and Bitching. Hanover House and Son of Ghostman are a very interesting study in contrasts. Where Hanover is dead serious, Ghostman is a lighthearted comedy. Where Hanover House is a fine production value that belies its freshman film status from its creators, Son of Ghostman clearly lacks that level of polish, and while it never sinks to the level of Birdemic, it clearly doesn't exist on the same level of technical prowess. And speaking of Birdemic, the lead in Hanover House is not much of an actor. Never have I seen someone come across as being so insincere while delivering their lines, and it honestly brought to mind Rod from that film. In yet another contrast, while the actors in Son of Ghostman may not be at the Oscars anytime soon, they manage to imbue their time on screen with a gentle earnestness that makes them endearing rather than annoying, and there's a pervasive sense that everyone was enjoying themselves, which is very refreshing. Then there's the writing. Hanover House, for all of its slick looks, just didn't seem to ring true in terms of story or dialogue. Whether it's a spooky ghost girl popping up just to say, "You're gonna die tonight," the main character going insane for no particular reason, or his wife hilariously telling a mangled car crash victim to stay right there, nothing seemed to match up with the way people think or speak in the real world. On the other side, while the dialogue in Ghostman may be inexpertly delivered, there's wit and energy there, and a few good laughs to boot. And that leads me to the final difference between these two films. While I can certainly recommend Son of Ghostman to those looking for something out of the ordinary, when it comes to Hanover House, sadly, I cannot. As for my other choice, I have a bit of a confession to make. When I first heard the title and saw the cover, I immediately dismissed Witching and Bitching as a waste. Usually, when a film has to resort to shock value in its title, there's not much of substance there, and I quickly filed W and B under my mental "do not open under pain of torture" file. Then, I saw it on the screenings roster and decided to give the trailer a view. What I saw surprised me. Not only did it not look terrible, it actually looked kind of good. Well, having seen it, I can now say that yes, I misjudged it, and proving that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, it's actually a pretty fun film. The story concerns 3 bank robbers who escape into the country after a heist, bringing one of their sons along for the ride. While they can deal with the cops fairly easily, what they aren't expecting is to run afoul of a coven of witches planning to turn them into snack food and the main character's son into the Antichrist. While it sounds like a pretty good setup for a horror movie, and yes, this film does have a few solid horror setups, Witching and Bitching is, as the title suggests, a horror comedy. It's very fortunate, then, that there are actually some pretty damn funny moments here, especially since the movie leans toward the comedy side of the equation. While there's a lot to recommend this movie, good laughs, decent comedic acting, what floored me most of all was the production value. This is a very good-looking movie. The set design is nuts, what CGI they use is top-notch, and the color palette occasionally almost reaches early Dario Argento levels of eye candy. Hell, given the subject matter, I wish we'd gotten this movie from Argento rather than the unfortunate state of affairs known as Mother of Tears. In short, while they should have gone for the original title, Witching and Bitching is definitely worth a watch. Anyway, that's my weekend at HorrorHound. I had a lot of fun, and I hope that I was able to pass some of it on. Anyway, that's all for this week. See you next time on Terra Obscura.
Welcome to prime time, bitch. And remember, tell them the Nightmare Man sent you. or something. I don't give a damn what you